It was a golden morning in the city centre when Adrian Keller, a self-made tycoon renowned for his precision, discipline, and unyielding control, terminated a business call and walked into the kitchen of his mansion. Sunlight poured through high glass windows, bathing the marble floors in a warm, golden glow. All surfaces sparkled, all objects were in their rightful positions. Adrian's world was founded on perfection, flawless, efficient, and unyielding. But then a soft noise shattered that perfection, the clink of a fork against a plate, the scrape of a utensil on a dish. Adrian, intrigued, followed the sound, thinking perhaps a cleaner or a cook was working. But as he turned the bend, the sight before him froze him in his tracks. Crouched on the floor beside the wall behind the dining table was his young maid, Isla. Her uniform was wrinkled, her posture small and nervous. She was not sitting at the table. Rather, she had taken a seat on the floor, eating last night's leftovers with a single fork. It was a quick, nervous bite, almost as if she was afraid of being discovered. Adrian held his breath for an instant. A billionaire who is surrounded by opulence, observing someone hiding just to consume discarded food. If you think that one small act of kindness can turn a life around, take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe on Real Kindness Story. For sometimes, one decision, one heartbeat of kindness can rewrite a person's entire life. Adrian Keller wasn't a vicious man, but years ago, he'd created walls around himself and the feelings that brought humanity to life. Success had taken over. Figures, transactions, deadlines had filled the space once occupied by empathy. He'd forgotten what it was to feel afraid or hungry. But something about Isla, her shaking hands, her desperate silence, awakened something within him, a sense he hadn't known in years. Without a word, Adrian moved away from her before she could catch sight of him. But his memory of that instant lingered. Who was she? Why was she dining alone in secret, on food intended for the garbage? A bit later, Adrian checked through her files. Isla had worked for 8 months. Always on time, always polite, never a word of complaint. She was paid relatively little, maybe decent by his yardstick, but now he found himself asking, had he ever really seen her? That evening, for the first time in years, Adrian lay awake. He couldn't shake the image, her huddled in the corner, cradling her plate as if it was something of value. The following morning, he made up his mind. He went into the kitchen early, intentionally this time. Isla was already there, cleaning the countertop. Her face was white, her steps guarded, nearly frightened. When she clattered a spoon and winced like a child dreading a beating, something within him broke. This wasn't about food. This was about dignity, about a person struggling in silence to live. He watched in silence, not being suspicious, but worried. He saw she took the smallest share from the staff food, sometimes forgoing breakfast altogether, lying that she was not hungry. Confronted by the head housekeeper with a quiet talk, it was discovered that Isla sent close to all her wages back to her village to cover for her ailing mother and little brother. She kept just enough to eat, and for the first time, the man who had everything experienced what it was like to have nothing. That evening, Adrian Keller was sitting in his favorite restaurant, surrounded by opulence and good taste. But for the first time, none of it pleased him. Each mouthful of his meal was bitter, soured by the thought of Isla, huddled in a corner, eating off rubbish. And as the soothing music filled his ears, visions of his own past crept in. Those days of being merely another struggling intern, sleeping on crummy couches, surviving on instant noodles, and pursuing a dream that seemed so far away. Along the way to success and loneliness, he had lost sight of that part of himself, the one who understood what it was like to have nothing. Adrian chose to make a change that week, not because he felt guilty, but because he knew what he should do. He gathered his household staff and made a quiet but forceful declaration. From today, he told them, everyone who lives in this house eats together in the main dining room. No more leftovers. No more isolation. No more shame. The room went silent. Stunned faces looked towards him. No one said a word for a moment, until Isla, her voice shaking, whispered a quiet thank you. Adrian merely smiled and answered softly, no one should have to hide to eat. And from that day on, things started to change. The mansion, where silence and routine once held court, started to ring with laughter and chat. The dining table, once a symbol of stratification, was now a place of warmth and bonding. Even Adrian found himself staying longer, hearing stories from the staff who worked for him, finding out how much life he had missed by staying to himself. And the change didn't end there. A few weeks after that, Adrian summoned Isla to his study. She went in hesitantly, having no idea what was coming. But instead of scolding, she was met with compassion. Adrian presented her with an envelope and a folder full of documents. And what lay within were application paper for a scholarship program for her little brother, free of any cost, and a medical assistance plan for her mother's treatment. Isla gazed at the documents, shaking her hands, tears welling up in her eyes. Adrian gazed at her and spoke softly. You've devoted your life to serving others. Let someone serve you this time. That was a turning point for both of them. Isla's mother started to get better under good care. Her brother enrolled in school, full of hopes for the future. And Isla herself started smiling again, a real, warm smile that came all the way to the eyes. Adrian, however, found something more profound than commercial achievement. Unobtrusively, he began supporting orphanages and food initiatives, anonymously, not his name attached to it. The man who used to think wealth was about having it all now realized it was about giving and not looking for anything back. He explained to his closest friends late one night, I used to believe money was about control, but true wealth is empathy. It's the power to make a person's life easier. Months went by, and the mansion that previously seemed stiff and unyielding now echoed with warmth and laughter. Isla regularly cooked extra meals to take to local shelters, something Adrian avidly supported. And that picture, the one that had tormented him once, of a woman eating in a corner off scraps, became the memory that altered his life forever. Because kindness doesn't start with gestures that are big. It starts the second we decide to notice what others overlook. One sunny afternoon, sunlight streamed through the dining room. Adrian sat at the extended table surrounded by his staff. No hierarchies, no walls, just people having lunch. For the first time in years, he experienced something he hadn't experienced even in his greatest successes. Peace. Not the peace that was born of luxury, but the peace that was born of doing something fantastically right. As Isla placed the last dish on the table and sat down with him, no longer hiding in the background, Adrian caught on to something deeper. The lady who had once hid in order to eat leftovers had shown him the biggest truth of all. Compassion is the true money of a meaningful life. If this story moved your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Real Kindness Stories, because even the smallest act of empathy can make someone's world change. Before you leave, tell us in the comments, how? What does kindness mean to you personally?